Morning everybody, it's book review time. I ought to be out riding my bike, but to be honest the weather is shit. Well, it's kind of shit and it kind of isn't. You know, it's that kind of weather where it's raining and then it stops raining and the clouds part and the sun comes out and a blue sky and it's glorious. And then the clouds close over again. And then it starts raining and it's very high winds and it's miserable. So the fact is I'm not out on my bike. I know others are, I ought to be, but I'm not. So I thought what I'd do is a book review. And the reason I'm going to do the book review, and it's this book here, if you can see that, and it is called Riding in the Zone Rouge by Tom Isitt. Is it? How many times must he have had that joke when he was at school, at university, at work, whatever it is he does for a living? I think he's a journalist or something. And people say, what's your name? And he says, Tom Isitt. And they say, pardon? He said, Tom Isitt. And they say, is it? And he said, fuck it is. So get over it. Anyway, this book is called Riding in the Zone Rouge. And what is it? Well, I'm going to read a bit of the back of it because that's, it's quite a good blurb, actually. And the reason I bought this, by the way, and I bought it for £20, shit, and I didn't get it from Amazon. Like, I do buy a lot of books, I'll be honest. I got it from, I believe, Daunt Books in Melbourne Road. Absolutely wonderful bookshop if you don't know it. And I was wandering around, I think I'd met my daughter for lunch, I was wandering around in Daunt Books and I picked it up and I looked at it and I thought, that looks really good. And I read the back of it. I'm going to read it to you now, so listen up, kids. The conditions were almost impossible. The riders had to stop every few kilometres to clear the mud from their chains and brakes. There was no let up in the terrible weather, visibility was awful and the roads were in a dreadful state. Every town and village was dark, in ruins, abandoned. Between Bapaume and Albert there was literally nothing and no one, just an empty wasteland haunted by the ghosts of lost battalions. Now, doesn't that make you want to read it? It is a book about a cycle race that took place in 1919, which was called, and I'm going to have to read this again because my French is a little bit iffy, the Circuit des Champs de Bataille, the Tour of the Battlefields. It took place in 1919, about 6 months after the end of the First World War, and it was basically a stage race. There were about seven stages. And it was around the Somme, it was around Amiens, it went to Strasbourg, went to Rouge, so all around that area where the battle was fought. And what Tom Isitt has done is he's drawn together 3 strands. Now the first strand is an account of the race itself, which he's drawn from contemporary newspaper accounts. He's then drawn together and intertwined it with part of the story of the First World War and of that area of the First World War, which was the prime location, let's face it, around the Somme and the trenches. And the third strand is his riding of the route, which he did in April, May, to try and recreate the similar weather conditions. He couldn't follow the route exactly because obviously many of the roads have changed and some of it is now motorways and so forth, but he follows the route as closely as he can, largely on his own, occasionally with his son, occasionally with a friend of his. So it's a cycle touring book and a history book and an account of a cycle race. And I'm going to go out on a bit of a limb here. I'm going to say this is the best book about cycling I have ever read. And I'm also going to give it a, a compliment, which you may think is a bit pompous. I think it's a bit pompous. Certainly my daughter thinks it's a bit pompous. And that is, it's a book I wish I had written. It is that good. Because he's done something I wish I'd done. He's done something I think a lot of cyclists have wanted to do. But he's done something more than Tim Moore's done. You know, Tim Moore and his books about riding the Giro from 1919 on an old Italian bicycle or riding around the Iron Curtain on an old steel bicycle and so forth. Tim Moore has tried to create hardship, and what Tom Isitt does is he describes hardship And he doesn't ride it on some Brompton or something. He rides it on his normal road bike. It happens to be a titanium spin bike. Sounds really interesting. But he doesn't go overboard on his descriptions of his luggage and the bike and the wheels and so forth. That's in there, but it's in there and it's interesting information. And it makes you think, I wish I'd done that. I wish I could find a similar stage race that I could do the same thing on and do that ride and discover things about the First World War that I didn't know. And he's very good at describing the devastation, not only caused by the First World War, but the devastation caused by the Germans, who were, of course, occupying that territory. Let's face it, the Germans had overrun Belgium. And he's also very good at describing some of the actions of the German soldiers in retreating, the kind of wanton destruction, their destruction of Rheims Cathedral, which they bombed for no particular reason other than the fact that they could and because it was there. And I always have a kind of, not romantic view, but you have this kind of view of the First World War that, you know, they're playing football on the Christmas Day and so on and so forth. And the Germans were sort of ordinary boys like our boys were, and they were just sucked into the war and so on and so forth. But Tom Isitt is quite good at saying, actually, it wasn't entirely like that. There was wanton destruction. I know I've used that phrase before, but it's a good phrase. There was wanton destruction, unnecessary destruction, and unnecessary violence on the part of the Germans, not just during their occupying period, but during their retreat as well. So it's illustrated with photographs, largely contemporary photographs of the destruction. I don't know if you can see that one there. There are a couple of photographs of Tom Isitt himself on his bicycle, but not many. It's mostly about the war. It's about his bike ride. And if you're looking for something to read, if you're interested in cycling, if you're interested in literature, if you're interested in the First World War, if you're interested in great writing, then Tom Isitt, yes it is, riding in the Zone Rouge, the Tour of the Battlefields 1919, cycling's toughest ever stage race. As I say, I bought it from Books, 20 quid, but you can buy it from Amazon, you can get it a lot cheaper. It is a fabulous book. Now, while we're talking about books, I could not let this moment pass without showing you these three. And you may recognise the author. Yes, Julian Hutchings, that is me. Now, there are three in this particular series. I quite like these covers. Do you like these covers? Because these lines, there are five lines. Do you see that? It looks like a cycle route, doesn't it? On this one, you can see it's red on a black background. The reason it's red on a black background is it's called Unreliable Death, and it's about a death that takes place on a reliability ride for you cyclists out there. The second one in the series is called The Monument, and The Monument is about, yes, one of cycling's great monuments, Liège-Bastogne-Liège. And it is about a sportive, it's about the sportive it's about the Liège-Bastogne-Liège sportive, which I did myself, and about a crime that takes place during, or rather before, during and after that particular race. And the third book is The Marmot Murders. Marmot Tours is a cycle touring company. I've been on a number of their tours. They do tours around European countries, fabulous tours if you're interested. I went on one with them in the Picos district, and I thought, well, I might quite like to write a story about it, and I wanted it to be a murder mystery. So this isn't true to life, by the way. It is fiction, I should make that point. But it is about murders that take place on a cycling holiday. So if you're interested in going on a cycling holiday, if you're interested in murdering anybody, or if you're interested in getting murdered while you're on a cycling holiday, not that that will happen to you on a Marmot Tours trip, because they are fabulous tours, buy this book. Now, having said all that stuff about buying that book full price in Daunt Books and not buying it from Amazon, these books, because they are self-published, are only available on Amazon. But they are either $3.99, $3.95, they're about 100 pages each, about 20,000 words, so it won't take you very long to read, and they're a good read even if I say it myself. And if Tom Isitt, yes it is, wants to say nice things about my books in the same way that I've said nice things about his book, then Tom, please do. See you next time.